And now I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, The Future of Work and Job Search in 2021. I'm going to hand things over to our featured presenter today. She is a seasoned executive leadership coach, Erin Cambier. Erin, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Mayanne. I am really excited to be here with all of you today and talk about some trends we've been seeing from 2020 as we look ahead to the future of work and 2021, and specifically whether you are preparing for or in the midst of or just want to be ready for a job search, you are in the right place with this webinar today. A little bit about me briefly. The reason I'm here to talk to you today is because really careers are my area of expertise. I've been helping individuals and groups with leadership and career development for more than 20 years, several certifications within that arena, including in resume writing, coaching, Strengths Finder, and just truly, I'm really passionate about helping individuals be successful in their careers and that they can become they can get into high performing roles, they can navigate a job search with ease, and it doesn't have to feel overwhelming all the time. So we are going to talk about some of those tips as we dig into our content today. So uncertainty, I wish there was a road sign like this of last year, right? That could have told us this is what we probably should expect for 2020. And not only, and as I pulled in this road sign, not only does it say uncertainty, but I thought the irony of that is that the picture's even a little bit blurry on my screen. Like that's just perfect for 2020, right? That really has been a good descriptor of this year. And as we look at 2021, I feel like sometimes we are just grasping for that certainty. And while I can't tell you, nor can any other professional, that there is certainty ahead, I can tell you that your mindset and your strategy and some very specific things that you make, shifts that you make to yourself and your strategy can really help you as you prepare for 2021. We can't change our circumstances ever, but we can change how we respond to them and what we do with them. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to discuss some workplace and industry projections for 2021. I pulled together data from several different sources, looked for some consistencies, and that's what I included in our webinar today. We'll also discuss how to leverage your strengths to more proactively manage your own career so that we don't have to feel, which is what happens in the midst of uncertainty, is like we're just so reactive. We want to make some shifts to being able to be proactive in terms of our own development and our own careers. We will discuss how to position yourself to maximize career opportunities, including virtual career opportunities. We'll talk about also the virtual job search and what that looks like. And then we will wrap up with discussing how to use some of those proactive strategies to uncover and find positions that may not be on job boards. So Mayanne's going to open this poll up for us. I'm just curious, for those of us who are here today, indicate if you're just here to listen and be aware. So the first one is, I'm not planning for any job changes in 2021, but you're still here for good reason because obviously you care about your career. The second one is, I'm just kind of contemplating or preparing for a potential job search next year. Maybe that's internal promotion or external. And then the third one is, I'm engaged in an active job search right now. In other words, I'm ready for my next opportunity.
All right, everyone, I just launched the poll there. Give everyone a few seconds here to just log in their answer, and we'll close it here shortly.
So not planning for any changes, considering it basically potential change, or you're engaged in an active search.
All right, I'm going to get ready to close here the poll. And let me see here. The answers we have, 38% are saying they're not planning for any job changes in 2021. 42% say I am contemplating or preparing for a potential job search in 2021. And 19% said they are engaged in an active job search now and ready ASAP for the next career opportunity.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Mayanne. And thank you to everyone for letting me know kind of where you are. Typically, when I do a webinar like this, it is about an 80-20%, that about 20% are actively engaged in a search, and that seems pretty consistent. No matter where you are in that poll, you're in the right place, meaning we're going to talk about topics that are relevant to all three of those things. And if you are not planning for a change or even just kind of dipping your toe in the water, I want to commend you for not taking a back seat in your career, for really preparing and starting. The first step really is starting to think ahead. The second step would be doing some actions, which I'll share in our webinar today. But hats off to you for putting your career first and taking time for our webinar, because I promise I spent a lot of time putting together some great information that you can leave with some value. So let's talk about some statistics in terms of current job trends. This is from Robert Half, and it was ran recently. This is the current monthly job summary as of November 2020 from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. 245,000 jobs have been added this year. The current unemployment rate is 6.7%. I'm sorry, the 245,000 jobs was, I believe, as of the month of November. And the unemployment rate for college grads was at 4.2%. Let me pull that into a chart on the next slide here. Again, this is from the Robert Half website. Their unemployment rate, which this is data pulled from national trends. You can see the unemployment currently is on a downward trend. We obviously had a spike, as you may know, in that March and April arena. And you can see we are currently on that downward shift. That being said, there is some important things to note here, and this is not included in this chart, but the October jobs report shows that long-term unemployment rates are actually up, which means long-term unemployment are people that have been unemployed more than 6 months. So this number spiked in October. So people that had been employed more than 6 months or longer went from 19% in September to 32% in October. It continues to carry over currently. So that means there are people in the job search, and that may be you, who have been looking potentially since that April or March spike of unemployment. It also means there's some new challenges that you face once you encounter that long-term unemployment, which is more than 6 months. All of the things I'm going to share today will apply to you whether you're currently unemployed, it's been longer than 6 months or not. Just being aware that there is, things to be more even proactive about as it gets to that 6 months or longer. And that's because some industries are still impacted. Hospitality, travel, etc., have not rebounded. So that's contributed significantly to some of those long-term unemployment numbers. Let you take a look through some of that. The circle there that it says on the job exhaustion is setting in for some. 34% of workers are more burned out on the job compared to a year today. And I think of the survey that I have taken in terms of individuals I've spoken to, I would say it's almost 100%, just of my unofficial survey. It is just very, very common now that our stress levels are higher, whether that be due to external circumstances or situations in our workplace. There's a lot of exhaustion as we're entering the end of 2020, but we want to be able to look forward to 2021 with hope. We want to have just that hope of a positive future, and really understanding that we can't control our circumstances, whether 2021 is filled with trends that we like or don't like in terms of the market, etc. We can start to make some shifts within ourselves and within our strategies of managing our own career that can really bring in some more of that peace of mind and certainty into our spirit about who we are and managing our own careers. So I also pulled in some data as far as industry trends. This is from LinkedIn, specifically their workforce report that was printed in October. So some industries that are up this year, after specifically being at lows, would be real estate. Real estate was up just a very small amount earlier this year, and now it's up 54% for the year. construction, about the same consistencies. Retail, transportation, logistics, manufacturing. Think about all the areas that are serving when we're able to physically distance in our homes or in our workplaces, but more distance. Those businesses that can serve us in that arena are obviously up in terms of overall industry. In contrast, some industries that have underperformed from where they were earlier this year have been the arts. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to go out and see movies and musicals and concerts and all the things that we enjoy. So that's obviously been greatly impacted, as well as recreation and travel. Some of the other industries that are down this year are agriculture, hardware, networking, and software. I'd like to point out, this does not mean that if you're in hardware and networking or software, that it means your industry is down, or your position is down, or your future is down in any of these areas. It does mean this is just industry data. Now, that being said, we're going to talk about technology and the importance of it. So hardware, networking, and software roles within some of these other organizations of industries that are trending up is exactly where you want to be, because technology is a great arena still that's impacting all of us today. If you want to learn more, if you are in a job search or preparing for a job search, I would absolutely encourage you to continue to research what's going on within the industries. Are they trending? Is this industry trending up or trending down? LinkedIn is a great resource to research that, as well as Glassdoor and Indeed are two websites that research, study this a lot, and publish a lot of free reports. So staying up to date with that is important, especially as you're considering a job change and looking at wanting stability and wanting to get into an industry that is on the rise and maybe not going the other direction. So here we pulled in some key themes driving the future of work. As we look to 2021, some of the things that have impacted us in 2020 will continue to carry over into 2021. And specifically, you've probably heard the term emerging technologies, or specifically AI. The term AI means artificial intelligence. It's essentially automation. Machines and data science are really driving the way that we work and the skills that we need to be successful in our roles. Now, this didn't change in 2020. It's been on a trend of increasing much prior to then, but this year it's become even more important. Our demand for technical roles and for understanding artificial intelligence and how it impacts us in each of our roles is really critical. Specifically, 2.3 million jobs will be created by artificial intelligence by 2021 was a indicator, or came up in a study previously, and 1.8 million jobs will be eliminated. Because as we automate things, that means that sometimes we feel like automation is only there to eliminate positions. But when we look at the data, it actually shows that other positions are created, it just is in other areas of work. AI will generate $14 trillion of additional revenue by 2035 for the global marketplace. So for me to be employed today, tomorrow, really in any role that I do, I have to understand how technology impacts me as an individual, my job search, as well as the companies that I work at. We'll talk more about the virtual job search and specifically AI as a part of your job search today also. So career pathways and market needs is another key theme, meaning from a career pathway perspective, as the nature of our work has changed, especially this year, it's going to continue to evolve next year. Our old career path kind of used to look like this. We would be, promoting up and moving up the ladder per se, but now people's careers look more like this. It's a very swirly line, especially because we may have taken on a lateral move because we wanted an additional challenge, or due to a market need, we may have made a shift in our career that was not necessarily a move up, but allowed us to be in a better position to have future career opportunities. People are balancing two jobs. They're sometimes going back to school. there's a lot of different things that don't fit into that standard career path, nor does it always fit into a standard resume in terms of how we were kind of trained to write a resume. So it's important to start to think about that as you're looking at your career and putting that on paper, or even your personal brand on LinkedIn. We will also talk about that today. Our market needs, specifically, there are companies and industries that are on the upswing, and there are companies and industries that are not. So being aware of what's going on in the market. Amazon obviously is definitely on the upswing because they're able to service what's going on in the industry, in our homes and in our industries, and the market needs today. And then we have seen, as a result of these market needs, how really connected we are and how we need to be, how interdependent we are as a global marketplace, which is that next one. So a global marketplace and our global economic integration. Again, this is not a new topic, but it will become even more important as we go into 2021. The focus has been shown the last couple of years that this focus on the global marketplace is rising. And it means that we have seen a significant increase in remote work, in working together across the US or even globally. We can hire the best person for the job now. We aren't necessarily limited just by a physical area. Now, in some positions, yes, that still exists. But I think 2020 has forced us out of our comfort zone, sometimes in good ways and sometimes in bad ways. But the positive of that is being forced out of our comfort zone has allowed us and forced us to rely on other people and do business a little bit differently, which has expanded our use of the global marketplace. And then multiple studies agree that in the future, a new mix of skills will be needed. In order to have our support of increased technical skills, there's some key skills that have come up consistently in studies from recruiters, managers, CEOs, etc. And those key skills are adaptability, communication, critical thinking, human-centered soft skills, and digital fluency. So if you are technically savvy, and you heard me say earlier, technology, your knowledge of technology and ability to adapt is key. I don't want you to sit back and go, all right, I got this. I want you to now take that next step and think about, okay, I have the technical skill set. What are the other skills I need to be able to really maximize those technical skills? And that human-centered soft skills is what I want to point out, that there is still a need for us to stay connected as humans, as individuals. And I almost hate the description soft skills, because the word soft is actually the opposite of what growing our human-centered skills is. It can be hard work, but it is so important and so critical to set us up for success, and especially as we look forward to 2021. So our opportunities, for the most part, have gone global. If you're in the job search, you are not necessarily just limited to your physical location. Depending upon, if you're a doctor, yes, you probably need to have that position be somewhere where you can, be located. But for many of us, our ability to job search at least a national level has expanded. That also means that our competition has expanded, whether that be nationally or globally. So as we think about those two things, there's definitely some things to balance. Overall, it is absolutely benefit to individuals and employers. But the way you go about navigating a global market is key. So it says here, more global and remote work means the talent pools have broadened. Meaning, if I'm a manager, I'm not limited usually by just where I'm located. In fact, it says here more than half of managers have hired staff remotely during the pandemic. Then I'm really going to encompass that as to overall 2020. And of those, 6 in 10 expanded their search geographically to reach more people. Which means that if I am a developer located in South Dakota, and previously I would have been limited to just the South Dakota area, employers are actually expanding their search to be able to reach the right person no matter what their location is. So that should be really encouraging for job seekers. And there's a quote included here from a leader at Robert Half, who is where I pulled in some of the statistics. And it says, despite an overall slowdown in business, companies continue to hire for critical roles during the pandemic. In many cases, employers have adjusted their recruiting strategies to accommodate new virtual work realities, and they're seeing immediate benefits, including faster and more successful hires. It is so important if you're preparing for a job search or in a job search that you have a pulse for what's important to recruiters and companies. So this is encouraging. They're still hiring. They're still trying to bring on people faster and more successfully, which is a huge win for you as an individual and a huge win for the companies also. We know that remote work has been really critical to us in 2020. There's some mixed studies about whether it will be continuing into 2021. Some people say, yes, absolutely, there will be even more remote work. And some people say, you know, I think companies are really appreciating how much they missed having people together in an office. So there may be a trend down of remote work. Regardless, preparing for a remote job search, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, is really critical because virtual recruiting will continue into 2021. You've probably felt like this at times, maybe even today, hopefully not, but this year has definitely been challenging for many of us. The job market, the workplace seems and feels more competitive. This is actually quotes from job seekers and things that I've consistently heard as a career coach this year. Our jobs feel less secure. I talk to clients all the time who are like, you know, I've been here for 20 years. I've never even thought that I needed to look for a job, but I am positioning myself in a different place now. I still don't want to leave, but I want to be prepared if something changes. And even our market and our marketplace is, you know, much more volatile. So that's leading to a lot of these feelings. If you are ready for a job search or in the midst of a job search, we hear really often, and one of the things quoted is, I don't even know how to get started. And it's critical to point out that right now, a good resume is more important than ever. We will give you some resume tips, but just recognize that your brand standing out in the crowd is really critical in the course of the job search. Your resume is a tool, but it is not the only tool to help you stand out. And I'll talk about some more of those tips shortly. The Job Seeker Nation survey, say that 5 times fast, says that 73% of people say finding a job this year is harder. So we have shifted to virtual job hunting. Even if you have hunted for a job before, it's different this year. And it's a different mindset, it's a different tactic and different strategy. So being able to adjust and make some of those shifts is really critical to make it through that seamlessly. In 2021, you will continue to need some of these skills that if you have not started job seeking yet, you will need some of those skills. If you've already started, making some shifts in incorporating some of these job search tips will help you tremendously. A huge shift that I want to encourage you all to make right now, and if there's one thing that 2020 has taught us, it's that we are responsible for our own careers. We cannot rely on a company to manage our own career development. And that seems to some people obvious. And to some of us, it's like, yep, okay, I had that good reminder this year because some things changed in my company. And though I was a loyal employee, though they were loyal to me for that 20 years, they had to make some business decisions. And it didn't matter whether, you know, it was not a personal decision. You may have had your job eliminated, or you may have had your hours cut, regardless of everything that you did right in that situation or circumstance. So what that comes down to is we have to not just be looking short term and not just be relying on our employer to own our own development. We have to be proactive. And if you can always take the mindset of a free agent, that's a term that I use frequently, of not saying you're always shopping for the next best job, but truly you're always being prepared by building the best you as an individual and as a professional or as a leader. You will be in a great, just a much more beneficial position to look short-term and long-term at your career. Disruption can be a good thing. So what I want to have happen is not, I have the word disrupt in this slide, not to not let the current disruption in the market or in the job search derail you. That if you can position yourself to really maximize these opportunities to grow through this disruption, it absolutely can be something that can serve you and can help you become better. So think about internally. have you shown your boss that you are the go-to person, that you are someone that they can count on time and time again? Are you taking on extra? Your company may have been disrupted with a shift to remote work 6 months ago. Since then, how have you handled it? What are the new things? How have you helped adjust not only yourself, maybe some of your colleagues? Those are proactive thoughts that are looking at the moment and also big picture, proactively looking at who am I as an individual? Is my career marketable inside my company and outside the company? Do I need to get an additional certification? Do I need some additional training? How am I positioning myself to maximize opportunities and positioning myself to maximize learning opportunities? Whether you're employed or you are not employed, I very much encourage you, this is the time for development of yourself as an individual, of your team if you are a leader, because you will not only help yourself be able to increase your skills and knowledge, but you'll be more marketable and you'll be serving your internal teams as well as positioning yourself externally if you're in a job search. Looking at what are the gaps that you may have right now and what are the things that you might take on to fill those gaps? Do you need to take on a class? Maybe take on a new project. If you are not currently working, what are the areas where you could volunteer to take on things that may help make you more marketable in the search? Find skills that you have that you can use right now so you can be serving other people. It's not only going to help you with networking, but it's also going to be a potential resume builder even in lieu of being attached to a company right now. So disrupt and move forward. I brought in a picture of a black swan here. A black swan was thought to not exist until it was discovered. So in other words, just like with many things in life, we don't know what we don't know. So just because what hasn't worked for you before doesn't mean that it won't work for you now or in the future. I really want you to take away from 2021 and carry forward 2020 and carry forward in 2021 that thinking differently. And sometimes our circumstances have to be so shaken up to allow us to think differently about what's going on in our world and specifically about our careers. But if we can use that as the gift of 2020, it will carry you throughout the remainder of your career. One of the most important things to do is keep up with changes in your industry and what's going on in the marketplace. Always keep that 1,000 foot picture or 1,000 mile approach to your career, meaning it's so easy, especially if we've been with the same company for a long time, to kind of just get stuck in the status quo, where we just come to work every day and we do the same thing. But are we really thinking about where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? It doesn't mean you have to change companies, but where do I want to be in terms of the impact I want to make, in terms of the value that I'm providing to my organization as well as to my family, etc. Use this time now to really start to take that big picture approach and carry that forward. Ask good questions, challenge the status quo. What percentage of jobs are really filled through job boards? Should I be spending every day, 8 hours a day, trolling through job postings? Or is there something more that I could do to be more proactive here? Are these current business processes working for us? Is there anything that we could shift to be able to help make us more impactful as individuals or as a team? These are all good things to consider and good questions to challenge the status quo right where you are right now. So job hunting is not easy, as we know. With the right mindset, with the right strategy and the right plan, you can make it a much less stressful process. I promise. Here's a couple of good insights to help you as you look forward for 2021. Technology savvy is critical. And if you are thinking, oh, and maybe you're rolling your eyes at the screen as I say that, I just want to encourage you that at the core of that, old rules do still apply. Relationships have been found to still be something that are needed, more than ever. So even though we're relying on technology, and I'm sure you felt this, if you're working remotely or leading remotely, we have to rely on technology in order to do that. But at the core of that, we still have to be building and fostering relationships. So our ability to integrate those two things as we look forward to 2021 is really important. If you're deciding about a job search next year, I have a ton of people ask me very frequently, should I still go forward with a job search? That is really the number one question I get. And the short answer to that is yes, absolutely. Do not let the market trends or the things that are going on scare you. Our job search and our recruiting actually has been virtual for a long time. It's just become even more so this year. To recruiters, they have been using the internet, using technology to find people many, many years. It's actually just to us as job seekers that it's becoming even more so a critical tool. Internal source of hires are still the main source of hires. So if you are in a position where you can get your foot in the door and maybe a lateral move, and it's not the move up that you wanted, but you know that there's a career path there for you, then that's absolutely a great avenue to take, because the number one source of hires for almost all companies is internally. The second source consistently across the board is employee referrals. So that word of mouth. Which means from an external perspective, employee referrals are still the number one source where companies are finding people. So we're going to talk about if you don't know anyone, because the challenge is building and fostering relationships in a company if you don't know anyone there. So we're going to talk about a few tips about how you can position yourself to hopefully be in that position to utilize those employee referrals. And then that last one listed here is job boards. So job boards are still important to companies. Do not take them out of your job search strategy, but I greatly encourage you, do not rely solely on job boards. If you do, you're only seeing a small percentage of jobs that are available or that are filled, and you are increasing your likelihood of getting the job, you're decreasing your likelihood of getting the job pretty significantly. So utilizing your network in 2021 will be really important. In order to do that, we really need to make some shifts. It says change how you search for a job. As you look ahead to 2021, shifting your approach to how you search for a job, where I'm not just going to rely on job boards, shifting my marketing, my branding. What the heck is that? What does that mean? So your LinkedIn profile, your resume, all of the things that go with how you market yourself will be important to make some shifts, not only to how you do that, but also to the content. And then your engagement and your follow-up. You want to be someone that stands out in the process. So making sure that you are fully engaged with companies and you're following up at every point of contact will be really critical as you look forward to 2021 and want to stay competitive in this virtual marketplace. So the market continues to be, of course, highly unpredictable and highly competitive. I can't necessarily change that, nor can any one person. Regardless, you can be aware of some recruiting trends so that you can position yourself, if you're ready for a job search, with some important knowledge that will help you. Virtual recruiting is definitely here to stay, 81% of recruiters agree that virtual recruiting will continue the post-pandemic, post-COVID into 2021. Now, it's important to note that virtual recruiting means more than just virtual interviewing. That it really, if companies are using virtual recruiting, it means you need to master the virtual job search. Companies that maybe have dabbled with video interviewing will continue to bring in integrated and upgraded approach to that in 2021. We always, typically when we think of virtual recruiting, we think of video interviewing right away, but there are a lot of other things. Virtual career fairs, you may have participated in one already, virtual networking. So we used to take people to coffee. That would be a strategy that I would talk to clients about. Now we rarely can do that. So how do we network on a virtual level and bring that into our job search without relying on being able to see someone in person? That will be a critical skill to develop. Online informational interviews, also your ability to conduct good video interviews, knowledge of AI processes and applicant tracking system tools. So resumes are scanned in a database. Let me see if I pulled in statistic. 98.8% of Fortune 500 companies are using an ATS system. If you've applied at a company and you had to upload your resume into a database, that is an ATS system. It is scanning your resume. It is matching your resume to jobs based upon keywords. There is a ton of automation in our hiring processes that recruiters need because they are inundated with candidates, with jobs to fill, and they have to automate some of these things like screening for skills right up front, text-based recruiting potentially. Major companies like IKEA, Netflix, even McDonald's are using chatbots for their HR and recruiting services. If you're struggling to talk to a camera on the topic of video interviewing, because honestly, most of us don't love that. I've never met someone that's like, yes, I'm so excited about, video interviews. So if this is a challenge for you, get comfortable in that environment before the interview, do some video calls with someone else, maybe tape up a picture. I always encourage people, if you feel like I hate just talking to the screen, tape a picture right next to the camera, someone that you like to talk to, hopefully, and look right at that picture when you're talking so that you're looking at the camera, you feel like you're talking to someone, and you're just in that right mindset so you can really let your true you shine in that video interview. I also like to mention for video interviews that when we're on video, our expressions are actually downplayed a little bit. So about 20 to 30%, I want you to overemphasize, whether that be in your facial expressions, whether that be in your body language and your tone of voice, so that your passion for what you want and what you're trying to connect with the audience really shines through in that conversation. The moral of this story for recruiting trends is that job seekers really have to embrace technology. And I know that might be what you don't want to hear right now, but truly your job search has to be online friendly or your career will be archived. It will be a thing of the past. So your resume needs to be online friendly. It needs to be written in a way that applicant tracking systems can read the content in there. So do some research on this. We don't have time to go into a ton of resume tips. I'll bring in a couple of things, but there are certain formatting things that are not compatible with applicant tracking systems. Sometimes clients will send me a resume written all in, several text boxes. And many times nothing in a text box is read by a computer. So do some research on that to make sure that your brand is compatible with technology and the virtual recruiting today. In order to leverage your strengths, create a strategy for growth. It's so easy for us to get stuck in the status quo, but creating a professional growth plan is one of the most important things you can do for yourself as an individual. Every course that I teach with New Horizons, at the beginning, we talk about this. And I ask students, do you have a plan for growth? I'm not talking about your sales plan. I'm not talking about, the project that you're launching or your team or anything. I'm talking about you as an individual, as a professional. And it doesn't even mean about this is the next position I want, but how am I going to grow as an individual to continue to be able to be marketable, to continue to be able to provide the most value that I can to my team, to my customers, etc. So as you're preparing for a potential job search, it is really important to have clear, targeted goals. One of the biggest errors that people make is thinking, well, let me just cast out a really wide net because I'll, get a lot of things back in and I'll, increase my opportunities. So I don't want to limit myself by saying, this is the only thing I want. But casting that wide net, you pull in a lot of seaweed, you pull in a lot of things that you may or may not want and are just going to be busy work for you and may not be moving you towards your goals. So having clear targeted goals is the number one thing that you can do to be successful in your job search. The more focused you are in what you want, the more successfully you'll achieve it. That will also allow you to target your resume and to target your online brand on LinkedIn. Your resume must be targeted and relevant to your audience. It is not an autobiography. It should not list everything you've done. Well, I want you to put on the hat of what's important to them. And I'm only going to include something that's important to my audience, not you know, I make the joke, if you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro 5 times, that's amazing. That's phenomenal. But if you're applying for a developer role at a company, that's probably not critical, and that may not be the tipping factor in landing the job. So focusing on what are the skills and accomplishments I have that are important to my audience. And then the second and really third thing tie together. Your resume needs to be filled with value. It should not be a list of responsibilities. Please do not copy your job description, throw it in bullets, and throw some dates on a piece of paper. And I smile because if you've got this right now, do not feel bad. You're not being picked on. You probably are just writing a resume how you were trained, either in college or, you know, by someone who wasn't knowledgeable about it years ago, and you've just been doing what you've known. Now you know something different. Your resume needs to be full of accomplishments, stories of your impact, how you have made a difference in your company, to your teams, to your customers, processes you have improved, etc. There are a lot of different ways to think about these things. You can definitely look up some more of that after this course, but really focus on identifying what my value is, and getting your resume and your online brand, LinkedIn, to include some of those accomplishments and impact stories will absolutely differentiate yourself. All right, a couple of job search myths. Do not fall into these. There is no one-page resume rule. First of all, scratch that. Sometimes one page is the right fit, sometimes two, maybe even sometimes three. If you have a 20-year career and you've had more than 2 or 3 positions during that time, cramming that on one page is probably underselling yourself. You're doing yourself a disservice. But if you've had a 20-year career, you've had one role in that time period, and it's encompassed several things, one page may be the best fit for you. What is most important is look at your career, make sure that on your resume, you're focusing on value and sharing your accomplishments. And from there, then develop the right length for your resume. It happens commonly, the second one, taking resume advice from colleagues. Well, I sent my resume to 10 people and I got advice from 10 different people, so you're constantly making changes because this person said this or this person said that. And I'm not saying that their advice is not value added, but I am saying, just like with anything else, take advice from a professional. Do research. If I needed to fix my sink, I wouldn't send it to 10 people that I know and say, what's your best advice for fixing my sink? I would look up who is a professional, and I actually would probably hire them to fix my sink instead of fixing my sink myself. But at the very least, I would take my advice from professionals because it's important, and your career should be important to you. And so your resume advice should come from, you know, trusted professionals. Do not rely on job boards as the only place to find a job. Utilize networking. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, but if you only rely on job boards, you're only seeing this much of the jobs that are available. So use job boards, but don't rely solely on that. Another couple of common myths are, if I'm the right candidate, I will get the job, or I'll get through their automated system. And unfortunately, that's not the case. You have to demonstrate on paper that you're the right candidate. You have to have the right skills and demonstrate that you fit that job. So the automated systems are scanning for keywords. The human eye is looking for value and success stories. You have to be able to integrate both of those things into your resume. Unfortunately, also on the next one, you may not get a response on every application. Just let that go, my friends. I don't like it. I don't agree with it. I think companies should get back to every applicant every time, but I don't want you to carry that. I don't want you to even, you know, carry that frustration, because that will carry forward into your search and your mindset. So if they don't get back to you, assume the best. Assume that they are a great company who is just doing the best they can with what they have, and just keep moving forward. You obviously may not want to pursue that company as a long-term, or maybe you want to call and follow up and see what's going on. Just don't personalize that. Don't create expectations in this process. Do prepare for interviews, even if you are a people person. The next one, do not rely on a recruiter or a headhunter to find a job for you. Now, I'm not saying they won't or they can't. They absolutely are a tool for your toolkit, but a headhunter is paid by the company. They are paid to fill jobs. They are not paid to find candidates jobs. There's a big differentiation. So don't just rely solely on that. Do use that as a tool in your toolkit, but do not use that as your only tool. And only applying for 100% match positions is another common error, where I have clients will say, well, I fit like a lot of it, but they're, they said they wanted, knowledge of maybe a certain technology. But my client has used a very similar technology and matches, 90% of the rest of the position. So I would advise them apply for that position. In fact, about 80 to 90% would be my guidance in terms of a percentage. Now, if it is in bold and it says must have previous, 10 years experience with this technology, yeah, you might need to hold off on that. But in general, that 80 to 90% is a good guideline to keep in mind as you're applying for roles. I have so much I want to share with you. We're running through this pretty quickly. We will have time for questions at the end. I just want to make sure we get through all the content so that you get all this information, and hopefully you have some good questions to add. So be jotting those down, because we'll open that up shortly for questions. So I have here, create a proactive job search. The best time to prepare for a job transition is way before you need a new job. So the people who mark that top category, if I could take a magic wand for everyone in their career, I would say that's the time to prepare before you're comfortable and confident in your company and your position, but you want to be proactive and be in a place where you're always growing your value. Your LinkedIn brand is critical, no matter what you marked on that initial survey. Preparing for a job search, in a job search, or just kind of dipping your toe in the water. LinkedIn is the #1 place recruiters look for people. More often than not, a recruiter or hiring manager will Google you before they maybe call you, but for sure before they meet you. LinkedIn will come up usually as that #1 place. If you do not have a LinkedIn profile, in fact, if you have no presence online, sometimes that's actually a deterrent. And I know that sounds crazy. I work with clients all the time who are like, I'm a private person. I don't like social media. I don't want to be a part of that. I'm not telling you have to go join Facebook. I am saying that you want to choose what your online brand is. You do want to have a professional brand online, and LinkedIn is the best place to build that. Remember that job boards represent only about 20% of available jobs. So you must expand your search beyond job boards in order to be able to capitalize on some of those positions. Now, that being said, many companies, like Fortune 500 companies, they have to post usually every single job. But they are filled through employee referrals, maybe even before, or they have someone in mind before that job is posted. So in order to capitalize on accessing some of those positions, what I want you to do is develop a target company list. These are companies that you know you can provide value at. These are companies that you have an interest in. This is where I'm honing in. I'm not casting a wide net. I'm developing a target company list of companies that maybe are former competitors, but basically I am either passionate about or know I can provide value at. Research the specific market needs that will help you develop that target company list. And once you have the target list, you can research what's going on in that company. You may see that the CEO is scheduled to retire, or that they're going to be adding new locations next year, whatever's going on in their organization that might give you an indication that you are in a position that could provide value. That's great information to pull in. Then you're going to foster and build relationships, both online and offline. In other words, pick up the phone, ask for a video call, talk a little bit about networking. Of course, in an hour webinar, we can't get into every aspect of a successful job search. But if you leave with one thing today, it is determine how to better foster and build relationships, how to carry that networking piece over into your job search and combine it with job boards, recruiters, etc. Conducting informational interviews is a great way to develop your target company list, build relationships, and even research the market. An informational interview is basically just where you are asking for a conversation to glean information. You don't even need to call it an informational interview. In fact, they may get confused if you say, could I have an informational interview with you? But if I have a company that I'm interested in, and I am an IT developer, I'm just sticking with that because that's the example I gave earlier, and that's definitely not my skill set. So it's a great example to use. So if I'm an IT developer, I'm interested in working at Google. I would, one of the first things I would do if I don't know anyone or I don't know anyone who knows anyone, is actually try to find a developer who works at Google and see if I can connect with them on LinkedIn, if they would take a phone call with me, because I want to know, what's it like to work there? What advice do you have for me? What are some insights into, what you think that someone could do to position themselves to be really marketable at Google? Informational interview, you can Google that to get some good questions to ask and learn more about that. But you can absolutely do that while you're targeting a virtual role, or even if you are working from home now, informational interviews can be done online. This is something that may have previously been done over coffee, but not always. A phone call is a great way to reach out and connect. Okay, so I have used the term networking quite a bit. And I really want you to start to shift your mindset about networking. So when I use the word networking, I'm not talking about tell everyone and anyone that you know that you're looking for a job. That's not networking. Now, if you've done that, that's okay, especially if you're unemployed, you want to maximize that. But if you're balancing working currently and a confidential job search, you can still use networking without in a way of feeling slimy, without in a way of feeling like I don't want to tell, I don't need a handout from people. What I often hear is like, oh, I hate to ask people, to do things. I'm really independent. I don't want to be a burden, any of those things. So the mindset shift I want you to start to make is that networking is really just about relationships, building relationships, fostering relationships, starting with people that know you, that like you and trust you. That is the best place to start every time as you think about networking. Remember that none of us succeeds on our own. Even if I am in an individual role and an individual contributor and rarely interact with other people, I still need other people. If I'm self-employed, I still need other people to be able to work forward or accomplish my goals. So networking is the most effective way to take control of your career. The people who have solid contacts, who have fostered and built relationships, are the people who navigate that job search so much easier than the people who are in a position of a job search and now they kind of start reaching out and start fostering some of those relationships. Now, I'm not saying it can't be done. So if you're like, oh, I haven't really focused on relationships the last 10 years, that's okay. You didn't know then what you know now. And what you know now is balance the needs of your job with also building and fostering relationships. Helping others, paying it forward, sharing advice. Networking gives you a competitive edge. It gives you access to decision makers. It helps you obtain insider information, and it helps open up a whole new job market. So that example I gave of if I am a developer who wanted to work at Google, I know it might seem intimidating for me to pick up the phone and pick out a random developer at Google and call them. So I'm always going to think about starting with people that know me, like me, or trust me. So I always look at that circle first. So I might first pull in some of my trusted contacts and say, I am kind of dipping my toe in the water and thinking about a career move next year, and I would really love to get my foot in the door at Google. Do you know anybody that works there? And I might start spreading that to some people, again, that are in my trusted network, depending upon the confidentiality of your search. If it's not a confidential search, that's going to be a wider net. But they may be able to make one of those connections for me and open a door and say, yeah, I know so-and-so, he works in maybe manufacturing. I don't know, Google doesn't have many, I was thinking Amazon. He works in another department. But he may be able to connect me with the person that I want to speak with. Long story short, that we are all interconnected. We all enjoy helping each other. We have a basic human desire to stay connected. I like to give the example as far as networking of a client that I had. This was many years ago, maybe about 10 years ago. I was working with him and I shared with him, I just want you to tell your tight network. So like the people that you really know and trust well. He was in a confidential search. He wanted to work for Pepsi. He so he started talking to a few people, one of which was his neighbor. And he said to me, Erin, I would have never thought to tell my neighbor that I, was looking to get my foot in the door at Pepsi, because my neighbor's an electrician and he worked for not Pepsi, just some random company. But he did. He mentions, I am, the neighbor says, how are things going? He says, I'm good. I'm kind of, starting to approach a job search. I'm really hoping to get my foot in the door at Pepsi. And wouldn't you know it, the electrician neighbor said, oh, my brother-in-law works at Pepsi. What do you do? What do you want to find out? Let me make a connection. So the electrician neighbor connects him, my client, with someone at Pepsi, who again was not the direct hiring manager, but was an influential person. And long story short, that person ended up being able to get a referral for my client, got an employee referral, and got his foot in the door for a position that at the time wasn't even advertised when he had this conversation with his electrician neighbor. But his contact at Pepsi knew that so-and-so was retiring, and they would be backfilling that role in the next year. So those things come up faster, and they come up more often than you would anticipate. So don't just limit your networking and your conversations to the people that you feel like would be able to help you. Networking is about building and fostering relationships. So pulling this all together, lots of information that we covered today. Remember that we don't have control over our circumstances, but you do have control over what you do with those circumstances. So what you feel, what you think, and how you respond, we can all still control. So your mindset matters. If you are in a job search or preparing for a job search, please take time for you. Put your oxygen mask on you first. Do some of that self-care so that you can work through some of the emotions involved in this and that you can stay consistent in your job search. Some advice that I share often is something to help you stay committed in the job search and to help you be successful. This isn't in the job search purely, it's in other things too, but number one, it's create a plan. So in this case, create a structured job search plan. And based on professional guidance, research, information that you know is critical and is needed. And then number two, commit to executing that plan. Execute your process consistently without being emotionally attached to the daily results. I like to equate the job search to weight loss. If you work out every day and you eat right every day and you do everything what you feel like is right, you've brought in professional guidance, you're working with a coach, or you've researched what to do, and you step on the scale and it's down a pound, and you think, oh my gosh, I have done way more than a pound's worth of work, and you decide, well, I'm just going to throw it all out and let me go find something else and see what works this week. If you do that every single time, will you lose weight? Probably not. I won't say never, but likely not, because consistency is so important. So networking, for example, applying online for jobs. One networking call may or may not, you might not hear back from them. Does that mean you should stop networking? No, it just means they may have been busy. They probably don't think anything bad of you, and you're going to focus on your mindset and moving forward, and you're going to keep trying. You're going to commit, you're going to create a process and stay committed to executing that process. Because after week 2 or week 3 or whatever that is in the weight loss example, what might happen? If you've done this, you step on the scale and it's down 10 pounds and you're like, whoa, I didn't feel like, I just did the same thing as last week, but the results were different. That might be the same thing with your job search. You may do the same thing at 2 companies and have 2 completely different results. But as long as you know what I'm doing is the right things, because it's led by solid, sound advice, then stick to those efforts. Focus on your daily habits. Do make adjustments if you need to. Again, staying with, knowing what's going on in the industry and the market, and adjusting your habits with professional advice or research from professionals, and keeping that positive outlook. Success and happiness ultimately is a choice. It's a choice that we make every day. We can't control our circumstances, but we can control what we do with them. A great course that piggybacks right to my next slide. We have several courses that really, they're not about the job search, but they piggyback on a lot of the different aspects, and those key skills that I talked about will be important for 2021, regardless of you entering a job search or not. The class I think of most often is emotional intelligence. That's where we really dig into some of that self-talk that we have, some of our wiring, the brain science of our careers and how we can be successful. That would be a great course. I also really like building successful teams. That's a great course for providing value where you currently are or in your future company. Some of my other personal favorites, we have programs and courses on these topics, managing remote teams, transformational leadership, and then we also have some programs and courses about leadership for a new manager or a new IT manager. Some of us have been thrown into leadership this year and we may or may not have felt prepared. So those programs and courses are a great way to help you feel more prepared and be able to provide the best leadership that you can, or the best individual performance that you can. Okay, we're right at an hour. I tried talking super fast to cram in tons of great information for you. Let's open it up for any questions, and Mayanne will share them.
No, great. Thank you so much, Erin. If anyone has any questions that they want to type in at the moment, please feel free to do that. Just want to reiterate a couple things that Erin was saying. I know we're at the top of the hour, but if you're interested in the material that was presented in this webinar, or if you just have questions in regards to what Erin was talking about or what's available to you, please contact your local center for more information. You can log on to newhorizons.com and do a quick zip code search to find the center that's nearest you. Also, quick reminder, the session is being recorded, so if you want to share that with anyone or review it or pass that on to anyone who really will find this information really beneficial, be on the lookout for that later today. So I'll jump into a couple of the questions that we have here, Erin. The first one is, this person said, having lost my job due to for a sales manager at a winery due to COVID, I'm concerned about gaps in my resume. Additionally, I've had difficulty with my job search in the food and beverage industry. Any suggestions for a shift into another field?
Okay, great question. I was actually hoping that would come up. So thank you for asking that. And I'm sorry that you are in this circumstance. First of all, I know it is very challenging. My suggestion whenever people are making shifts, and I'm glad you used that word, is that the more things that you can keep consistent, the more marketable you will be. So if you are wanting, you're saying, okay, this industry that I've been in is not, growing and likely won't have openings. Think about the skills that you've built in your past role and which of those skills are transferable to another industry. So sales is what I heard you say. And also think about what are the industries that impact or touch, the industry that you are in. So you can write a resume that is less focused on the industry, meaning I want you to minimize industry specific terminology and focus more on the skills you have built that are transferable to that next industry. Sales is obviously needed in a lot of different industries, but we don't want them to see you as only a food and beverage person. We want them to see you as a successful salesperson who succeeded in food and beverage and really could succeed in any industry. So think about your brand on paper. How are you showing that? And also targeting jobs that have a lot of similarities. So thinking about what are the skills I applied and how can I find a role that or a company, target a company that would have some of those same attributes. Keeping as many things the same will make you more marketable in that process. The other question about gaps in your resume, I always tell people, don't stress about gaps in your resume, because regardless, we can't change that. You can decide, maybe do you want to do some freelance work? Are you doing some volunteering? Are there other things, how are you spending your time? Is that something that if it's been 6 months or more, we may want to indicate what's been going on in that time period or have some things to put in there. But if it has not, usually that 6 month is kind of that guide of, okay, do I want to fill that in on my resume or explain what's been going on? Obviously that's more of an individual circumstance, but hopefully that helps a little bit.
Great. Another question that came in is, how closely should your LinkedIn profile match your resume? In other words, should your LinkedIn profile and resume be presented differently than our paper resume?
Okay, yes. So they should be a complement to each other. They should not be an exact copy paste. You want unique things on your resume, especially from a numbers perspective. You want to have examples with numbers in your resume. Likely on LinkedIn, you're not going to include specifics, maybe just percentages. You don't want to reveal anything proprietary. But also on your LinkedIn profile, studies have shown that on LinkedIn profiles, you want to talk directly to the audience. So as if you are writing in first person, as if you are speaking to someone. So you want it to be professional, but it is a bit more conversational professional. I would suggest having a summary in there that is, again, speaking to the audience, talking about things that you're proud of, things that you've done throughout your career. It doesn't have to be done in a egomaniac way, but it should be done in a way that showcases, again, things you're proud of, accomplishments. Always have a picture on LinkedIn. Do not have a picture on your resume unless you're in TV or something that, a picture is needed. But having a profile picture would be a differentiation. Have that on your LinkedIn profile. Make sure your LinkedIn profile that you check out your headline. That's the area right underneath your picture. That should be targeted and specific so that it is that's kind of like your window on Main Street. That's what people can see about you first, is that headline area. So make sure to edit that out of just your job title into specifically more of a branding tool. So hopefully that helps a little.
Awesome. We have a couple more questions here. Is there value in having a qualification listed on the resume to help with the AI search when you apply for a job?
So it depends. As with most resume rules, my answer is it depends. The best value is honestly if you can incorporate those words into the content, because you can have a resume filled with a bunch of keywords, but it does still have to get through a human. So we still need to know that the human eye is drawn to certain things that are bolded, things that are bulleted. We have to design it in a way that makes sense to them, because even if you get through the computer but they're like, oh, this is just a list of skills, you're still going to be out. So it is okay to have a qualification section as long as the rest of the resume is really filled with a lot of substance. And it is also okay to incorporate some of those keywords, into the body of your resume, because the AI systems are advanced enough to read those words together. In fact, some of them will actually, if you have several words together in a sentence, it will, rank you higher if it matches a job description. So the answer is it depends, but knowing that you do need to have words that match is a very important skill.
All right. Another question that did come in is, if you do a virtual interview with an employer, which a lot of folks are doing these days, but you don't have a professional background to display in the camera, is it acceptable to not turn on the camera at all?
Oh, okay. Great question. My answer would be, unfortunately, no, not acceptable. Because, and I know that stinks, you're like, oh, I wanted a different answer. But in the job search, you want to stand out in every stage of the process. You want to stand out as someone who goes above and beyond in every stage of the process. If it's a virtual interview and they want you on camera, be on camera. So even if you don't have an area in your home that has a good backdrop, if you can find a coffee shop or a friend, somewhere else. Oh, I don't even know if libraries are open currently, but at the very least, find a small area that you can control that backdrop area. And I'm glad that you're aware of, gosh, I don't want an unprofessional background, because some people are not aware of that. And that's some advice I share often, is check out what's going on behind you. Are there cups and papers and all kinds of stuff, kids' toys? I have had clients do interviews in their closet, which sounds crazy, but it was actually big enough that they could sit down, and they, had their webcam, and the background was part of a closet wall. I've seen all kinds of creativity during 2020. I know that you can be creative. It's important to have a good background. It's also important to have quiet. So if there's any way, if you have kids in the house, whatever you can do to help keep them quiet for that hour and distraction free, will absolutely help you. It's a little bit of work up front, I know, but it will absolutely pay off. They do not care what you look like. They are not wanting to see you on camera because, they want to know if you have wrinkles or no wrinkles, or good hair or bad hair. The reason that you want to be on camera is so that they can see who you are, that you can connect with them and build a relationship. People still hire people. we have to go through a computer process, but we don't want to rely only on technology to, to build that like in writing. We want to be able to give them that, show them the power of expression. So yes, use webcam all the time, embrace it, get comfortable with it. The more you do it, the easier it will get.
Great. And another question here is, how often should you update your LinkedIn profile?
Again, it depends on your goals and what's going on. If you're not in a job search, maybe once a year. If you have had you spent a lot of work, a lot of time this year really building a robust LinkedIn profile, and you haven't changed jobs, you might just need to touch a little bit next year and see if your goals, always thinking about when my brand was developed, number one, but what are my goals now, number two. So if my brand was developed and I was a salesperson, and now a year later I am wanting to go be a yoga instructor because I've spent a year studying yoga, then I'm going to want to update my online brand. So in general, I would, anytime your goals would shift is when I would update LinkedIn. And then the other thing is, if you have not built LinkedIn or have not updated it, to build out a good profile, and that means something in your summary, a little bit under your work information, a good headline, and a photo. I would do that as soon as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I know we're running about 15 minutes over, but I do appreciate, Erin, for you sticking around and just answering some questions, and for everyone who's on the call and has stuck with us for hanging around for some Q&A as well. We will be planning a lot more of these types of webinars in the upcoming years. So hopefully we'll see Erin again, and anyone who's joined us in some future sessions that we have planned for 2021. With that being said, please be on a lookout for a recording later today. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us for today's career development webinar session. Again, Erin, thank you so much. With that being said, have a good rest of your day, everyone. You may now log off from the webinar.